Three, two, one. Jeff, good morning. Good morning, listeners. Tony Pellegrini. Welcome to this iteration or this session of our teaching and learning at Southern Utah University, where we honor and value great teachers and great learners here at SUU. And today we have one of our best, Jeff Orton, from our business department, Business College. And Jeff, could you tell us a little about yourself, a little about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate the chance to be here and be involved in this. It's a wonderful thing you're doing here. I think it's awesome for me to be able to listen to other people. So thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome.
My background, I actually grew up here in Cedar City. I went to Cedar High and I actually went to SUU. Got my master's and both my bachelor's and master's in accounting degree here at SUU in accounting. Oh, yeah. And then I went to, after I graduated with my master's, I went to Las Vegas, worked for a national CPA firm in their auditing department. So I would travel around to different businesses and make sure they were doing their things okay. Was down there for about 7 years and then got the chance to come back to SUU as the internal audit director to make sure, basically my job here as the audit director was to sit down with the board of trustees and the president and the leadership here and just to see what kept them awake at night and see how I could help them get the data they needed to make decisions and make sure things were operating okay. And then after about 3 years of that, the audit professor here at the time retired. And so they said, hey, you got 10 years of audit experience. Do you want to come and teach the auditing courses? And when I was in Las Vegas at the firm, they held national trainings in Chicago. So I would travel back and help teach some of those national trainings. Everybody would come from all over the country to get trained there. And so I'd done a little bit of teaching and I thought, well, that'd be a great opportunity. And so I made the switch. This is my 5th year, so I made the switch just a little while ago and love it.
Wonderful, awesome. Wonderful. You've told me a little about the courses that you teach, the auditing courses, and you've told me a little bit, but I'd like you to delve just a little bit deeper maybe and why those are so important, why those are so important to our community, to our society. Would you take a moment and share that? Would that be okay?
Yeah. Everybody's favorite person in the room is the auditor, right? The accountant and the auditor.
You've got a lot of friends is what you're saying.
Yeah, no. When you hear that word auditing or accounting, I think 2 words generally come to mind. Either one is fear, right, or number 2 is boredom, right. I think the classic joke is the definition of an extroverted accountant is he looks at your shoes when he talks to you instead of his own, right?
Okay.
So as the perceptions of auditing and accounting are just that now you just kind of get stuck in a back room, you're just crunching the numbers, or you just come to find what people do wrong. But what I found being involved in the profession itself and what I try to bring to the classroom is to basically my job as an auditor is to make sure without auditors and accountants, we don't have what we call capital markets, which means there are no loans, there are no stock trading, there are no futures. If there's no stock market, how would the country be different?
It would be much different, right? Wouldn't it be?
Banks couldn't lend loans to people. How would things be different? So my job as the auditor is to be an independent third-party person to try to go in and make sure everybody's doing what they say they're doing, and also not just to make sure they say they're doing what they say they're doing, but also to give them tips on how to be better, which you can become more of a consultant in that role. You have to be careful with auditing that you still stay independent. But as an auditor, you travel around from business to business to business to business, so you get a lot of best practice. In the teaching world, would be like visiting a bunch of different classrooms, a bunch of different universities, and you've got a whole lot of best practices and knowledge that you can take to that client and make things better. So the value that brings is that number 1, you can make sure people are all on the same playing field and that their reports are true. But number 2, that you can help the companies and auditing applies to not just companies, but it applies to governments, it applies to universities, it applies to you have accounting and things that need to be tracked from every size of community in the world to every type of organization, from Bangladesh to Tokyo to New York to Cedar City to any size, anywhere, anyway. It applies everywhere. So it's a pretty important thing in the profession or in the world itself, whether or not, despite the perception,
the advertising
tends to be out there. Yeah.
Jeff, it seems like you have a great broad group of students from these different backgrounds or different interests that are interested in business. How do you deal with that diversity of students in their in particularly maybe with their various learning styles? They learn a little bit different. You mentioned different businesses that need auditing services, and you probably get students from different areas. Do you find a diversity in your learners?
Absolutely. I think like everybody learns a little bit differently, right?
Hmm.
The advantage to auditing and accounting, though, is the fact that we need to be able to, our job is to approach things in different ways. Our job is to approach both businesses and financial transactions in different ways. And having a diversity of learners means that we can relate with the people that we are supposed to serve in the profession, right? Um, so having a diversity of learners is actually a really good thing. It allows me to come in and try to find a way to make the auditing or the accounting topics, because they apply to everyone. Everybody's going to face them and everything. And no matter what they do in their life, no matter what you major in, no matter what you do in your life, you're going to come in contact with some kind of accounting or auditing um, thing, and being able to relate everyday things to what those learners will experience kind of pulls things in and allows them, no matter what their background is, if they come from whatever um, country, location, learning style they have, it allows me to be able to bring in and try to relate the topics to them, and then you try to make class as interesting as possible and try to use a variety of learning styles rather than just a straight lecture or a straight flipped classroom where you're only doing things with projects in class and they do all the reading outside of class. But both of those have value, or whether you're playing quiz games and things like that in class. Try to incorporate pieces of all of those. And then maybe on a one-on-one basis and during my office hours when we have the students come in, and then I can kind of help them on a one-on-one basis that way.
And
That's probably a
that's
better way to do it.
that is wonderful, and that's where I'd like to kind of press you to dig just a little bit deeper and unfold yourself just a little bit more for us. You're doing a great job, but talk to us for a moment or two about those classroom activities that you feel students really connect with. You've got like you'd mentioned, you've got a very specific content that they need to acquire. What are some of the particular methods or styles that you use to be able to really engage and connect with your learners? Could you share some of those that your students have
Yeah,
done well
yeah,
with?
absolutely. I've got great students in our business school, and obviously all the time I'm trying to watch others to get better skills and get better at this myself. But just a couple of things that have worked well for me. Um, we do try to I have a pretty heavy case study element that try to make the application the material applicable. So I know what they're going to face their first 1, 2, 3, 5 years in the profession. I've been there, I've done it. So my job really in the classroom, like in one level, I'll prepare them to experience the things they're going to experience the first year in the profession, and then in the graduate course up to the third year in the profession. I've designed them that way to be hands-on. So we have case studies as one way. But the bookstore has been very good to partner with us a little bit. So one thing we do in my graduate level audit class is the bookstore's allowed us to come in over and actually go to the bookstore and do an inventory observation. So we go
Wow.
and count this stuff. So it's, yeah, case
They get
studies.
their hands on
Yeah,
things.
case studies are hands-on, but they're still academic, right? I mean, it's a good change from just book learning. It's a step up, but even the next step up is to do field trips and to experience things in real life. So doing case studies and those field trips, those go really well. We do play some games, before for exam reviews and things. Some people do well with quizzes, and we play a little Jeopardy game in class sometimes in some of my classes, well, all classes actually. I've also tried to incorporate, a lot of video content and things like that. So we do talking and discussions, we do video content, we do games, we do field trips, we do case studies. And so between some of those, not everybody thrives in all of those areas, but everybody should thrive in one or some of those areas.
It seems through your experience in education and background, you've had wonderful connections to be able to become a great teacher. Certainly, there must have been a little speed bump along the way, somewhere along the way. And so maybe for those, maybe faculty members who are struggling just a little bit, what advice or suggestions might you have? Or could you share a moment where maybe things didn't go in your past just exactly the way that you wanted, and how you worked through that particular challenge?
Yeah, I think we all kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes we do really well, and sometimes that just doesn't work out.
But
That's all of us.
that's being self-reflective, and that's a powerful tool to be able to use that. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Go right ahead.
Don't hesitate to interrupt. And I think there are always going to be students that we, just based on personalities, that some students we just don't, personalities don't match up, and hopefully most of them you can, right? But I'll tell you, my first a couple of semesters teaching, I couldn't look at my teaching evaluations for about 3 months because I thought, I finished the first semester and I thought, wow, I worked like crazy,
Oh, yeah.
putting in 50, 60, 80 hours a week just trying to get course content because I had to create for live classes and online classes, record videos, everything else. And I was working hard and class was going pretty well. I felt it was going pretty well, but it was clear that, when I started, I wanted to just knock a home run, knock it out of the park.
Absolutely, you
Like,
bet.
you wanted to get, you want the praise and the awards right away. And you're not that you need the praise, but just to know that you're doing a good job. You want that right away. And that didn't happen. I tried hard and the students were really nice. They said, no, you're doing a good job. You're trying hard. And it's kind of like an E for effort. So I honestly, I said, I got to finish this first one. I've got to get all my classes. I teach 5 to 7 classes a semester. So I said, I've got to get all these classes rolled into the next semester to get started before, if I read those student evaluations and they turn out really bad, I'm going to be in such a pit. I won't be able to come out and I'll be off to a bad start. So I didn't look at them for a couple of, which is I'm not recommending doing that all the time because student evaluation is very, very valuable. But you have to be in have a certain thickness of skin and you have to build that over time. And in my first semester, I didn't have that yet. And then after a couple months, I read them and they actually worked out really well. I had 1 or 2 that said, I wish a couple of things could have been slightly different, but overall you did well. And I realized, well, I shouldn't have been so scared of that, but I didn't know going in. So I think my biggest, one of my biggest recommendations would be know when to read your evaluation, know when you can be prepared to read your evaluations. Realize that most of the students here really try to be helpful with their evaluations. Anywhere you go, there are going to be some that are mean. You're going to get some mean comments, and that's just, we all face them, we all get them. Knowing that some are mean, but if you get 1 or 2 mean ones and realize they're outliers, treat them as outliers. See if there's some truth of something you can fix in what they say. But otherwise, just kind of ignore them, leave them as outliers, and then focus on the other ones that provide helpful comments. And don't be afraid to recognize the good things that you're doing as well. And I think I've had a lot of mentors also in the business college that have really kind of helped me navigate that a little bit and really tried to support me to try to build me up to get where I could be quite a bit better. And
that is so powerful, that concept of mentorship. Looking to our peers, and it's hard not to compare ourselves to to our next door neighbor, to others that are teaching those same classes. Do you have opportunities to reach out, because you've been mentored? Do you have opportunities to reach out and mentor other faculty or even students?
Yeah, I think we all have opportunities to mentor. It's a matter of whether you recognize and take those opportunities. But I really do, like, what really saved me was the fact that I knew the faculty that were around me were, even if I did something wrong, they would take me in and not just, they would support me and build me up. And so as others have come on, I've tried to keep that same mentality. But the role of a mentor also, you got to realize that even, you've been teaching for a few years and somebody might be newer than you, they may still have some pretty good, you can still learn from them, even if they're the first year, second year person. And I've seen a lot of that in our business school. We've got 3 or 4 teachers that have started after me in our accounting department specifically. And I've really been able to watch them. And I've tried to provide some guidance and support for them, let them know I have somebody to talk to. And we've had some good conversations. But the flip side is also true. I'm actually learning quite a bit from these new people. And sometimes we forget to learn from everybody, from the old sages as well as the newbies, and bring new perspective.
And we really have both of those at our campus. And I just am so tickled to be able to have this opportunity to visit with great instructors. Any last words of wisdom for students or faculty that you'd care to share, as far as enduring, being self-reflective, as you've mentioned already? Any last-minute words of wisdom that you'd care to share?
I think one of the things that changes, that I've enjoyed the most about SU is number one, the hands-on learning, the teaching style. But I've noticed that if you can get involved with the students outside the classroom, I'm also the director of the Professional Accountancy Club, where I take students on trips to Salt Lake and Las Vegas, and even around here, just to, we bring people on campus to get them jobs and to get them networking. But even other events outside of campus, trying to attend football games where my students are on the football team or whatever, and trying to support them when I can see them in social settings outside of campus and really get to talk to them one-on-one outside of campus. It changes the entire dynamic inside the classroom. I have a better relationship. We have a lot more fun. They have a lot more buy-in, and they know I actually care about who they are and what they're doing outside class. It's not just the accounting material is what this is, and if you don't learn it, if you learn it, I like you, and if you don't, I don't. I like you as a person, and we'll come to class. We may struggle through a few topics and materials, but if we have a relationship, you can come to my office afterward and we can talk about it or whatever. And that changes the entire environment. It's changed my entire experience here. And so I guess my advice is do what you can to be involved outside of the classroom and get to know your students the best you can, and your experience with them will change forever.
And that's a two-way street for students and for teachers. What wonderful wisdom. We are human beings. Yes, we're accountants, educators, whatever we meant, but we're human beings.
Even if I'm looking at your shoes when I talk.
we are still human beings. And, I come from more of a K-12 education background. We've never had to release a teacher because they didn't know content. They didn't know their accounting. They didn't know their content to teach. It was those human skills that you've identified that we struggle with. So those opportunities to engage in those and to put those into practice and have kind of a safety net here at the university to make a couple of mistakes if we need to, but to learn from those.
As long as you're willing to move on and fix them.
It is wonderful. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you and are grateful for your participation on campus and are just enthused to be able to be associated with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a wonderful experience.
You have a great day.
You too.